So you opened this emergency room. How did you like go about that? Like, did you obviously saw that there was a need for it, and how did you take the steps to actually opening that?
First, I approached the guys in Kemp Town and said, look, I'm kind of a long-term temporary vet. Any chance I could become more of a managerial position or a partner? And they said, absolutely no chance. I think they said, you're too immature. I mean, I had my decks upstairs, I was still DJing and running club night. They said, you're too immature, you have no idea about business. I think we'll just keep the things as they are. And I was like, and I think at the same time, my dad had taken me to lunch in London and says, you know, you're coming up to you're around 30. Now is the time to start thinking about laying down some foundations.
Interesting.
And so I approached them, they said no, and then I thought maybe if I approached a pre-existing day clinic on the outskirts of Brighton and convinced them to become the third partner, because there was 2 partners already, and run the emergency service, and they kind of said yes after a few meetings, and we had about 15 or 16 subscribing practices. Some of the ones that went to the Kemp Town one switched immediately because they knew me.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we had this quite busy emergency clinic, and then I started to write for the local newspaper, a free, as in I didn't get paid, a column every week about animals and pets in the Argus for about 3 years, and kept all my columns in scrapbooks. The nerdiness again. And then I got an opportunity to go on to live TV, which was the Paul O'Grady show, which at the time was on Channel 4 and had about 5 million viewers, tea time. And I got that because someone came to the practice and said they're looking for a new vet.
Yeah.
And I went up to London to the casting, took my scrapbook with all the things and said, look, I love educating and I love just explaining stuff to people and making things simple. And I got it, and I did about 6 seasons with Paul, who at the time obviously was a massive stand-up comedian, and Lily Savage. So again, ticking boxes, working with one of the most famous comedians in the country, but still being able to do my vet stuff. And we used to set each other up with jokes. And I had this pet clinic where I took him and the celebrity guests around.
Yeah.
And that made me a TV vet, although I didn't do that many in terms of like exposure, but it was enough to make me a TV vet, give me that label, which then enabled me to be invited to judge sort of charity dog shows around the country and endorse stuff, and it put me on a level that was incredibly helpful eventually in terms of campaigning. But yeah, they were always terrifying until about 2 minutes into like a 6-minute segment, when you relaxed and you kind of enjoyed it. But there were times backstage where you have the studio audience and one of your comedy legend idols, and you're sort of going out there. And I always used to wear my full scrubs, which used to again became a bit of a brand really. And yeah, looking back, incredible. I mean, he sadly passed last year as one of the most popular entertainers in the UK. And he did the Battersea programme. He was iconic, still is. To have worked with someone like that it was a huge privilege and honour. And he actually gave me the cover quote for my Lucy's Law book.
Amazing.
Which is quite rare apparently for him to endorse something that much.
Yeah.
And we always stayed friends. We always sort of bumped into each other at charity dues and stuff. And yeah, he kind of was responsible. Paul O'Grady was responsible for most of my life, adult life, in terms of how it panned out. A hell of a lot.
Did you, when you were initially asked or mentioned that there was an opening for the TV vet position on the show, was there any, like, obviously you want to educate people, but was there any part of you that was like, that's not for me?
No, it was a chance to be out of my comfort zone, but it was also a chance to educate. And I've always just wanted to teach people in not in a patronising way. It just, I love explaining stuff to people and empowering them with the tools to make the correct decisions to be responsible pet owners. Not telling people what to do, just saying it's probably a good idea if you consider doing this, and then people are more likely to do it. Sounds a bit manipulative, but it's only to improve animal welfare.
Exactly.
And as I say, benefit responsible pet ownership. But to work with Paul, one of the kindest, cleverest, funniest people I've ever been around, let alone had the privilege of working with, that really was the perfect environment to then educate the public and how to look after their pets.
And during that time, the 6 seasons that you were on the show, what was your fondest memory?
Oh my God, all of them. I mean, once there was like World Penguin Day, so I had to feed penguins in the studio with Graham Norton and Paul O'Grady, which was just mad. I mean, it was the beginning, I think, of mad situations that I found myself in.
Yeah.